So I'm going to ask you guys a question. How have you thought about health and politics relating to each other?
Thinking like the movements and everything, like politicizing healthcare and certain laws going into effect.
Yes.
Sort of like, I don't know, like example, like, you know, JFK versus like recent debates. Like JFK was healthier, he looked better. Let's see what, I don't know.
Okay.
He did better.
No, that's a good thought. I actually didn't know that. That's good. Yes.
Like for example, ways to control like growing obesity in the United States. So like Bloomberg's like soda tax, like things like that being debated.
Yes.
Like presidential races like Obamacare and things like the additional Medicare taxes.
Definitely. Healthcare is definitely a big issue now. Did you want to say something? Oh, okay. Yes.
In other contexts, like people's rights, like women's right to have like being politicians being pro-choice, for like women who want to have abortions, or like supporting women that want like the whole movement of women allowing them, being allowed to have birth control, and things like that.
Whose responsibility health is, if it's like personal decisions or if there needs to be regulations to like control what people are consuming and how they're exercising and stuff.
Exactly. And that's actually a great segue. That's what we're going to be talking about today, how the government regulates smoking. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you two video clips. One is going to be from a tobacco ad from the mid-1900s that's advertising smoking. And then the second will be a short program on the campaign for anti-smoking that the government has been showing through ads on TV. So I'm going to jump to the first clip, and I also want you to think about the why the government would show these ads, why they would allow anti-smoking ads to show on TV today and not allow pro-smoking ads to show now. So just kind of thinking about those ideas so that we can discuss it after.
Do you inhale, then you're better off smoking Philip Morris. And here's how you can prove it. Right up a Philip Morris. Take a puff, get a good mouthful of smoke, and slowly let the smoke come directly through your nose. Now light up your present brand and do exactly the same thing. Take a puff, get a good mouthful of smoke, and slowly let the smoke come directly through your nose. Notice any difference?
Yes, but Philip Morris is so mild, while my own brand seems sort of harsh and burning.
That's irritation. And remember, the irritation you felt in your nose is the same irritation that occurs in your throat every time you inhale your own brand. So for a more enjoyable smoke than you've ever known before, smoke Philip Morris. The one cigarette proved definitely less irritating, definitely milder than any other leading brand. Do you inhale? Then you certainly should.
So that is the pro-smoking ad. And now we're going to shift gears a little bit and watch the anti-smoking.
Smoking kills 443,000 Americans each year, more than the population of Virginia Beach. And starting Monday, folks there and all over the country will be seeing graphic anti-smoking ads. Dr. John LaPook tells us they're part of a $54 million campaign being launched by the Centers for Disease Control.
This is Terry. She's 51 years old and a victim of head and neck cancer.
I want to give you some medicine about getting ready in the morning.
She's part of the new public service announcements featuring disturbing images of former smokers. Roosevelt Smith smoked for 28 years.
Even when I was having my heart attacks, I still smoked a cigarette. Like during the heart attack. Yes.
CDC Director Dr. Thomas Frieden admits the ads are graphic and shocking. He says that's exactly the point.
Advertising works, hard-hitting ads work, and showing the reality of people's lives and what smoking does to your ability to live out your life as you want to live it, that's maybe the most motivating thing to get a smoker.
Recent history backs him up. In 2006, New York City began a similar media campaign. In addition, for the past decade, there have been higher taxes on cigarettes and restrictions on public smoking. In 10 years, smoking rates dropped 35%. Dr. Tom Farley is the New York City Health Commissioner.
We now have smoking rates in teenagers that's below 8%. That's the lowest as far as I know in the country.
Statistics show that nearly 9 out of 10 smokers began by age 18. The government says this ad campaign is especially focused on preventing young people from starting to smoke.
So you think it's okay for an 8-year-old?
I absolutely think it's okay for an 8-year-old to be watching messages that to prevent that child from becoming a smoker.
Even if it's very disturbing?
Even if it's something that the parent or the child finds disturbing, because that is the point. Smoking is disturbing. Smoking is killing hundreds of thousands of Americans every year.
The head of the CDC said the $54 million cost of the program will be more than made up in a few years by the healthcare savings from preventing illnesses. Currently, cigarette smoking costs Americans nearly $100 billion in healthcare costs every year. Dr. John LaFouque, CBS News, New York.
Okay. So, now that we've watched completely different types of videos on smoking, just want to hear your thoughts on the videos. So, why do you think the government prohibits pro-smoking ads today and allows anti-smoking campaigns to show on television? Yes?
Because so many people's lives have been negatively affected by a lot of smoking over the years, since whatever year that
mid-1900s.
Mid-1900s.
Anyone else have any thoughts? Maybe about how the research has influenced kind of the government's ability to allow anti-smoking campaign ads to show today, and the fact that don't we know that smoking affects the body more so than we did in the mid-1900s? Yes. We didn't really know too much about the effects of smoking. I mean, if we saw an ad, if it was okay for us to see an ad like that, then we really didn't know much about it at all. Yes.
But I would even say that they did know that it was it's like, do you inhale? I mean, like irritation. Like they put in the commercial, there's obviously irritation from your smoking, and then they put at the bottom like smoking stunts growth or something like that. So like they're showing signs that smoking's bad for you, but this cigarette is better, and probably like, I don't know who that actress was, but like if that's like a young kid's like idol or whatever, and that's what she's doing, and that's the cool thing, that I want to be just like her, I'll pick up something, maybe I will.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. I mean, I took it as they're explaining how the effect that it would have on you, as opposed to, because there's some sensation when you smoke. I mean, I've never smoked before, but they're trying to explain the sensation that happens and the feeling that you would get. But yeah, that's definitely a good spin on it. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I think definitely there's been more comprehensive research recently connecting smoking and the harmful effects of smoking. And I think in the U.S., the role of the government, public welfare is huge, and I think the U.S. definitely holds dear babies and, pregnant women. And so when we're talking about whose responsibility it is, and I think that plays a role in, allowing certain things, certain ads to show, because kids are exposed to that. And when you're connecting, when there's really strong research, on those harmful effects, and demonstrating that, then that, I think that kind of answers your question.
Right, definitely. And I agree. That's when I was actually looking up these videos, and I was thinking, what would I like to present to my class on smoking? Those are the ideas that were kind of coming up. The fact that there's a lot more extensive research today opposed to back then, and the fact that people are a lot more health conscious and they care about how they look now. I mean, if you saw the woman who has to put on a wig because she has head cancer, and you know, she had the hole in her throat. You know, people don't want to be walking around with something, would prefer not to be walking around with looking like that. So just the fact that people are more health conscious today just goes to show that this is the effect that smoking could have on you. You could look like this. I mean, and that's, you know, that's scary for people. So, did you have that?
I was thinking, I guess it's more, I guess, the business aspect of it, but I think because since originally healthcare, you know, became a big issue with the government as they're trying to gain more share of funds, and so that now that they realize that because of this research that's around, the government ends up pretty much forking over a lot more money than would if people didn't start smoking. And since government obviously has precedence over companies, so capitalism kind of gets stumped. And so they have the bigger voice when it comes to what is able to be shown, what's not being able to show, whatever. Especially because I know I did a project on smoking years ago, and it was like most people the people that consume the most cigarettes are usually lower economic tier, I guess. And that's what the government caters to as far as things like Medicare, Medicaid, things like that. So they're trying to make sure that less of their money is being forked over for people who smoke.
Right, that's also a great way to think about it, and that kind of actually segues into if congressmen and congresswomen today are going to be promoting, well, let's say if tobacco companies are going to be lobbying for congresswomen and congressmen to towards pro-smoking legislation, then what is that going to tell them about, with all the research that we know about smoking and the harmful effects that can have on you? How is that going to affect their votes? And in fact, are they going to be in office if they, I mean, I wouldn't think so, because they, you know, there's a negative connotation, there's more of a negative connotation to smoking as opposed to when we compare it to back then. Does anyone have any thoughts about the lobbying that goes on in Congress, and want to talk more about that? No? Okay. So, which ad do you think is more effective? The anti-smoking campaign or the pro-tobacco ad? Yes.
The anti one, because it appeals to emotion. So when you see it, it's like you're more like putting yourself in that position and being like, oh gosh, I never want that to happen to me.
Right. I agree with you. That was my initial thought. Anyone else? Yes.
I agree, but I think it depends a lot on the information that you have, because if the ad, the more like graphic ad of what can happen to you was shown like 50, 60 years ago, if people didn't believe it and there was still a bunch of ads showing how awesome cigarettes are, then it might not have the same effect as it does today when we know that scientifically, like, that there are certain effects that tobacco produces.